So for those of you who are watching, what if I told you that we can, or there's an individual who can figure out your intelligence level? Would you do it? Today with me is Alex, my co-host. How are you, Alex?
I'm well, and yourself?
Awesome. I love this topic, intelligence. Now, let me ask you: does the word intelligence in your world, as we go through this, um, well, let me ask you this. So you are an expert in identifying one's potential, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Self-proclaimed.
Okay. All right. Let's get to that in a second. But when you say the word intelligence, does that mean how smart you are?
Depends on your definition of smart.
Right. True. True.
Right.
Absolutely. But I think on the upfront, people when they hear the word intelligence, they think, oh, it means that I'm smart. I'm not smart. So
Mhm.
talk to me about that real quick. The intelligent word itself. I mean, you just defined it. Or we started to define it.
Yes, sir. So with that, most people that I find, they think exactly what you said, smart. But let's say, for instance, I have a student, it could be an adult or a child that just does not test well. And within America, we have a lot of standardized testing, which I do not think is fair, to be completely honest with you, because not everybody does well with the test. And I can talk from, well, not my personal experience, but my mother, she does not test well because it's like when she sees that piece of paper, she clams up, you know. But if I take that same test and I give it to a child that is that does well verbally, they will do well with that. So it depends on what type of intelligence they have, and not everyone just has one. So
Right. And I'm glad you brought up that point because I think it's something that's swept under the rug a lot of times that we need people like you to extract that from us that we're capable of certain things. It's just putting the right piece in motion. So let's talk about you and again identifying one's potential. We're going to go through four quadrants that we talked about earlier that you sum it up is how you go about identifying and helping one's potential. Let's start off with multiple intelligence. Your question is when you identify this with a person or a client, what intelligence do you have? What do you mean by that?
for instance, I'm a person, I do better with application. So I'm going to give you a real life example, but I'm not going to use any names because I respect, minors and parents' privacy and everything. So we're going to call this child the engineer. Okay. So the engineer, like we talked about earlier, does not test well on paper. And so when I spoke to him and his parents, they let me know. I said, well, hey, can you tell me what you're good at naturally? And he was like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, first of all, what do you like? What do you do well? And both mom and dad were like, oh my gosh, he's great at fixing things. I said, oh, well, that sounds like you have kinesthetic intelligence. Now, obviously, that's a big word. I said, all I want you to know is mean that your body's smart. So you do well with your hands, and he said, yeah, I am good at that, but that doesn't mean I'm smart. That's a physical labor. I said, baby boy, no, no, that is an awesome thing. I wish I had that type of intelligence. I don't have that. That's not my
Yeah.
lane, and I stay in my lane. So that is an example. Another intelligence that Mr. Engineer had was he was very logical. So again, he doesn't do well with the reading and ELA aspect. So when you put a piece of paper in front of him, he clams up. So how I applied that with him was I let his parents know, hey, let his teachers know, um, will they be accommodating, knowing that he has a different type of intelligence? Could you try implementing a way for him to move? So whether you allow him to take the test in a desk where it has a bouncy seat, or maybe
Hmm.
he has a stress ball that he can, take. Because again, we can't change that we have standardized testing, but we can adjust to the learner to make them feel comfortable.
That's a good point. I've heard of that before. At what point in how long has that been out where you can actually I know it varies from school or student or the
Right.
situation, but how long has that concept been out where you can let that individual bounce or something that will soothe them?
Um, I can't put a year on
Yeah.
it, but I know when I was teaching, that was something that we did, and that was back in 2017. I was a middle school teacher, so we were doing that then.
Yeah, I love the accommodation piece. So most people, would you say most have more than one?
Yes, most
Yeah,
definitely. They may not be aware,
right.
but others around you probably can tell you more about yourself than you can.
Do you think they're subconsciously aware? Maybe
So,
not.
I'm not sure. I'd hate to lie to
Yeah.
you.
Hey, we're keeping it real. That's cool. Yeah.
Right.
Let's move into the next quadrant. So we have the multiple intelligent piece out of the way. The
Mhm.
next is learning styles,
Yes, yes,
and you go on to assess how do you learn.
yes.
Talk to me about that.
So we're going to stick with the engineer since we talked about him. So the engineer, again, talking to his parents, I said, hey, how does your child learn? And they were like, well, he's not very visual, which is rare because most people are visual. And most teachers, they've got PowerPoints and they've got videos. He doesn't learn that way. So, but he does, he's an auditory learner, meaning he hears and you can tell him something once and he's got it. But if it's a topic that does not interest him, he has zoned out completely. So I said, well, we're going to have to do something about that. Is there another way that you learn? He said, honestly, I'm not sure. What are the other ways of learning? And so I told him, I said, you've got kinesthetic again, but in this way, you do reading and writing. And what I mean by that is basically just note taking.
Mhm.
And so I had him I had to teach him how to take notes because he said that wasn't something he was taught. And he was a sixth grader, or is a sixth grader rather. And so I said, hey, I'm going to show you how to take some notes. And I want you to do this when you're in school. I said, now, if you do not follow what I tell you, it's not going to be beneficial to you. So it's very important that you pay attention. And so he did very well. I said, now implement that in school and ask your teacher if it's okay, if maybe she needs to slow down or something so you could take a note, but do not hold up the class. And he said, okay. He did that. I want you to know he has been making A's ever since.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I like that. So you're saying once that individual understands their learning style, everything makes more sense.
Yes, that's why we
But
start there.
but
It builds confidence.
how do you communicate that to them that after this assessment and you identify that you're painting this picture, rightly so, that it's all going to make sense? How do you do that?
Well, by giving them, excuse me, by giving them real life examples of other learners, but again, without giving any personal information.
Sure.
And then I tell them, hey, just try it. You can try this technique tomorrow and see results. And he thought I was playing. He went in the next day and he said he aced his test. He said, Miss Scott, I've never passed my test for this particular class and I aced it. And he was so excited. And when I
Yeah.
say that just warmed my heart.
Sure. Sure. That's a notch on your belt, so to speak.
Right.
Okay, so let's go into the natural skills. Are you naturally gifted? So if one would ask me that, just generally not knowing what I'm talking about, I don't know what that really would mean. So what does that mean? Are you naturally gifted?
So, well, I'll stick with the engineer, but I also give you a different perspective to change things up. Now, with the engineer, again, he was natural. I call him engineer because he fixes things all the time. That was something that his mom, dad, and his grandmother were very adamant about. They were like, man, listen, if we have something that's broken, we just tell him, hey, give it to the engineer. He's got it. I'm like, so you're telling me he doesn't need a manual? They said, no, we just give it
Wow.
to him. He figures it out. I said, do you know how again, that is phenomenal and that needs to be celebrated.
Hmm.
And so when I told him that, he's like, yeah, but I'm not as good as my brother. My brother can just look at a test. Again, you're looking at a piece of paper, baby. A lot of people don't have to be trained to do that. What you're telling me you know how to do, grown people have to be trained and get degrees to do. Do you understand that? And you can see the light bulb in his head went off like a eureka moment, like, really? I said, yes. So
Yeah.
that's one example. Now, another example is I'm going to use my daughter for an example. So my daughter loves languages. Okay. So that is a linguistic intelligence, or that is what we call being word smart. Now, I also am word smart, but I'm an adult. So we're going to work with the children right now. So my daughter will I've noticed she likes to watch anime and stuff like that. And obviously that's Japanese. And then I noticed she likes to watch, I think it's Marsha or something. Anyway, but that's Russian. And then
Okay.
there's another thing she likes to watch, and I think that's in French. And I noticed, I said, she's constantly watching different languages. I'm like, and she seemed very engaged. And so I'm like, I need to explore that. And so I put her in Mandarin, and she's flourishing with the simple Chinese. That's basically what Mandarin is, a simple Chinese.
I
And
was gonna
she's picking it up quickly. Not sure if you know, but that is one of the hardest languages on this earth to learn for most
yeah, I did hear that. Yeah,
people.
that's good. But you and then you said though, and that's a great second example. Um, After you determine if they're naturally gifted and what they are specifically, there is a reason.
Right.
There is a reason.
Yeah,
What's the
there
reason?
is a reason, because we are born, at least in my opinion, I believe we're all born on this earth for a purpose, and you need to walk in your purpose. So you are given this gift, whether you the universe is what you believe in, or law of attraction, or a deity, a god, or whatever. I don't have, any say so in that, but I say walk in your purpose. If you have a natural gift, there is a reason. And once you figure that out, your job is not going to feel like work, because you're doing something that you love and you get paid to do it. And I tell people, you'll know you're in the right industry when no one has to pay you for what you do, and you'll
Yeah,
still get up and go to work. That's
yeah,
how
I
you're
agree.
doing the right job.
Out of the four quadrants that we're talking about, I think
Mhm.
right here, just my opinion, that is giving one confidence,
Definitely,
right?
most definitely. Yeah, that it starts with that. One of the
Because
things
if
that I do, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say, one of the things that I do is I start with affirmations, especially if I see, because students are all different. Now, if I see a child has confidence, then I don't have to start with affirmations. I can tell very early on if a child is very self-aware and if a child is very confident in themselves and their abilities. Now,
Now,
those children I challenge, so that's a whole nother realm. But
but hang
sticking
on.
with go
How,
ahead.
how do you know? How do you identify that that person is confident? What are some of the signs?
So for instance, when I ask them, well, what do you want to do when you grow up? There's no hesitation.
Okay.
They're very sure of themselves. Like, how dare you ask me that? Like, why would not, you know what I mean? That is awesome. And I just geek out.
Yeah. All right, I get that. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense. But all right, so I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, you're fine.
So there is a reason. Yeah. So definitely, yeah, nailing that down early on and giving them confidence. I like that piece. Definitely. I like them all, but this is intriguing. Um, let's go to the fourth and final quadrant. You're okay with me calling them the quadrants, right?
Sure, most definitely. Yeah.
Pieces to the puzzle, we'll say.
Yeah.
Your personality type.
Mhm.
You're now here identifying their personality type. And you said, what is your DISC personality? DISC. What
Mhm.
does that mean?
Now, this is where I'm going to switch over to adults, and I'm going to use myself as an example because I am in the workforce. So, in addition to having this as a business, I also work as a global trainer for a pharmaceutical company. Now, within that company, I have had to pivot my leadership styles and my training styles because of my personality type. I am naturally a high I, which means influence,
Mm,
or inspiring. So most people who are influencers or inspirers, they are teachers, they are priests, things like that. Now, with a high I, obviously being a teacher is my shoe. It fits well. But when I started at this company, I did not start as a trainer. I started on the line, building kits. Now, with that type of job, we think of those as like the backbone of the company. So those type of workers would be an S, or what we call the steadiness in the DISC model. Okay. So those people, they don't like to be in the foreground. They want to be in the background, but they are very reliable. They are team players, and they pretty much get along with everyone. So you definitely want to have a steadiness worker on your team. Now, when I changed roles 6 months later, I became an investigator. Being a S or steadiness personality did not work. I had to pivot and adapt my style to my new role. So I had to pivot and become a D, which is dominant. dominant people, those are your CEOs. Those are
Yeah.
your police officers. Excuse me. Those are your judges, entrepreneurs. These are go-getters. These are people who they are task oriented or goal oriented. If you have a meeting, they are all about getting things done. They are not about a lot of what I call fluff. It's like we have an agenda and I need you to stick to the agenda. I
Yeah.
have a full stop, in 30 minutes to an hour. Let's get going. Now, those people typically are not very flexible. I hate to say it like that. They typically people do not like them, but they get things done. So you definitely, they have all of these different personalities have pros and cons. Now, switching to the C. So the C is compliant, or what we call conscientious or calculating. Now those are like your lab people, your not HR, your mathematicians, your statisticians, your accountants. So these people are very proof oriented. They need some tangible evidence if they're going to do a task. You can't just tell a microbiologist or a chemist, hey, these numbers don't look right, but it's fine. No, that's not going to work out. I need to make sure that I'm in compliance.
Yeah.
So if the math ain't mathing, as the children say, then I need to make sure that I figure out what's going on. Now, again, because these people are very sticklers for results, they're result oriented. They don't get along with a lot of people either, but they are very precise and they are highly accurate. So again, they have their pros and their cons.
I love where did that term come from? Like, I never heard of that disc.
Disc, it is actually something that a lot of companies are, and that's why I try to match the personalities to the career path, because a lot of companies are starting to do this because they learned that you get results. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say someone has interviewed, example again, for a trainer position, but they have a D personality. Let's say maybe you don't really fit well for this position, but you know what? I have a position over here for a facilitator or a admin, or like I said, a CFO or something like that. I think you would be better suited for that. So let's put you where your personality fits. And you're going to be an asset to the company in your natural state versus trying to force yourself into a role that doesn't fit. That's like putting a square inside of a circle.
Yeah, yeah. I could see that working though with young adults too, as well as adults. At what age, from a young adult perspective, would you start applying this disc personality feature to?
Oh, I mean, you can apply disc as early as you want, but just know as the person grows. I mean, you think about college. I know for myself, me as a freshman was not the same as a senior. But when it comes to my work ethic, that's never changed. So
Mm-hmm.
you see what I'm saying? But not everybody's like that. We all evolve at different rates. We all evolve at different speeds. So
Absolutely. And that's a good point also, that people, the evolution of one's personality, likes, dislikes, um, the way they are definitely changes as time goes on. All right, so let's tie this all in together. So again, um, you identify one's potential. We went through the four quadrants: multiple intelligence, learning styles, natural skills, and personality type. Let's talk about you. How can you help an individual, whether it's a young adult or an adult, tie this all in together to figure out their potential?
yes. So again, once I identify that intelligence, once I see your natural skill, your personality and everything, so then I'm going to basically marry all of that together and help you identify not only the industry that you should be in, but the particular job that you should be in. So for example, again, my background is science, but I learned that wasn't the best shoe for me. So, excuse me. So, I learned that being in a lab was depressing for me. Now, was I great with the machines? Yes, I could troubleshoot all day.
It would be for me too.
You see what I mean? Like, I need sunshine. I need to talk to people. Listen to music is great, but I learned I needed that interaction. But someone else recognized that in me. They were like, "You're so sad. It's because you need to be outside, or you need to be talking to people." So I took that into account and I pivoted and went to being a teacher. Loved my job, but I didn't make a lot of money and I had got divorced. So again, that wasn't the best industry for me at the time. So I had to pivot again and find an industry that works. So the industry that I'm in now is tied to my science background, but it also ties to my academic background and my passion for being a trainer or a teacher. So I've married the two. And when I say that was the best decision I've ever made, and I want people to be just as happy as I am in their lives.
That's a great story. That's a great path. Right? You learn it. You learn as you go along. All right. So let's talk about your consulting slash tutoring company.
Mhm.
Tell us the name of it, and we're going to put your information, as people can see here now. We will have it for you, for them to reference, to reach out to you. But tell us the name. Let's talk about it real quick.
Sure. So it's Spivey Tutorial Services of North Carolina. And the website is www.spiveytutor.com. And I have several tutors. So obviously it's my company, so I am a tutor as well. But due to some health concerns, I am trying to step down so that I can recruit more. So I'm trying to share the love, as people say. So
What's
I'm
wrong
trying
with
to
that?
recruit. So in
Yeah.
addition to recruiting for new clients, I am also in need of new tutors. So if anyone is interested, please go to the website and click on the Calendly scheduler, and you will find at one of our options is the Spivey Tutor interview. In the interview section, you will find a form. In that form, it's going to ask you several different questions, and then you will email me your credentials and everything. And then when it comes to the clients, there is also a client section where they can click on it and fill out the form. And it's going to ask you about the things that we talked about in the quadrants, about the intelligences that you notice about your child. Or if you're an adult and you're filling this out for yourself, it's the same thing. You will identify what you feel is your intelligence, and I will confirm that once we talk. And then the same thing, your learning styles, your personality, your natural skills. And if you have children that may have special needs, because I know we have autistic children, there are special learning disabilities like dyslexia, or maybe they have ADHD, stuff like that. Do they have a 504 plan? Are they on an IEP? These things are very helpful for me. And I
Sure.
can also incorporate that, when I tailor the instruction to their particular needs.
Awesome. I just want to make note, though, even though you're based in North Carolina, for everybody
Yes.
that's watching, this is virtual, though, a virtual option.
Yes,
So
sir.
where and everywhere. That's what's
Right.
cool
And,
about our.
and oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's what's cool about this platform, is that the diversity of people all over the country and world can connect through this platform, of course. But it's cool. It's different. And what you just told me, and I learned from you as well. And I know we talked a few times before. Um, I'm always learning. So this is good stuff. So your information is there, and hopefully we can connect again and give us some updates, and we'll do a few different cool things. How's that
Yeah.
sound?
That sounds great. And you mentioned virtual. I already have international tutors. So if there are people who need, outside of the states that need help, I definitely can accommodate that as well.
Okay, great. Alex, thank you very much.
Thank you.